Hello and welcome back to AP Psychology. I'm Miss Lee and we are still in Unit 7. This video focuses on hunger motivation. We have one learning target. By the end of this video, you should be able to describe classic research findings in specific motivations, particularly the motivation system of eating. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and grab your notes and let's get started. So this is something that maybe you have wondered about. I know I have because I'm particularly motivated by food, but what actually triggers hunger? We have some things that trigger us physically. So we have stomach contractions, there is some body chemistry happening, and the good old brain has to have something to say about this. And this is particularly including the hypothalamus. You may remember the hypothalamus is the center for our drives, and that includes the hunger drive. So in research conducted by A.L. Washburn and Walter Cannon, we discovered that stomach contractions or stomach pangs, hunger pangs, send signals to the brain making us aware of our hunger. How they conducted the research is pretty interesting. Washburn actually swallowed a balloon, and what that balloon did was it measured the stomach contraction. So every time he felt hungry, he would press a lever. And what this proved was that every time his stomach contracted, he was feeling hunger. Another factor of hunger is our hormone system. So let's talk about glucose metabolism. Glucose is digested and taken up by the body in the intestines. Glucose is stored mainly in the liver and muscles as glycogen, and it's distributed and used in tissues as free glucose. This is basically our body's fuel, and it comes into our body in sources like starch, glycogen, disaccharides, monosaccharides like glucose, fructose, and galactose. These are all basically examples of sugars. We don't consciously notice the changes of our glucose levels. Instead, the levels of glucose in the blood are monitored by receptors or neurons in the stomach, liver, and intestines, and they send signals to the brain, specifically the hypothalamus. Starting to make sense. So within the hypothalamus, you have different parts that are responsible for different things. We specifically talk about the lateral hypothalamus and the ventromedial hypothalamus. And I have some mnemonics for you that might help you to remember which part does what. The lateral hypothalamus, you may see this referred to as the LH, brings on hunger. So if you destroy it, like if you were doing research and you lesioned this part of the brain, the animal will basically no longer want to eat. It will starve to death. And so I like to kind of remember it, the lateral hypothalamus, L, lateral, L, let's eat. So it brings on the hunger. The ventromedial hypothalamus is the part of the brain that stops you from feeling hunger. It tells you when you're full. So it depresses your hunger. Destroy that part of the brain and the animal will continue to eat excessively. It will eat until it vomits. Maybe not, but that's your mnemonic is V vomit, V ventromedial hypothalamus. There's also this theory about a set point. When we manipulate the lateral and ventromedial hypothalamus, it alters the body's weight thermostat, so to speak. And this predisposes us to keep our bodies at a steady weight. It's kind of like maintaining, again, that word homeostasis. It's that balance that our body kind of goes back to over and over again. The theory states that if weight is lost or we go below that set point, our food intake is going to naturally increase and energy expenditures are going to decrease. So we're going to want to eat more and move less. If weight is gained or we go above that set point, the opposite takes place. So you naturally would want to eat less and move more. To maintain the set point, the body not only adjusts food intake and energy output, it actually also adjusts its basal metabolic rate, the body's resting rate of energy expenditure. Our body's metabolism will drop when less activity is occurring. Not all researchers actually believe in the idea of a set point because they believe that slow, sustained changes in body weight can actually change the set point. So maybe it's that they don't believe that the set point can't be manipulated. There is also a very distinct psychological factor in hunger. There are external incentives. Sometimes we just eat because we're triggered by the presence of food, or we are triggered by something else external. We really like taste high-fat, high-calorie foods. We crave them sometimes. We also tend to eat by the clock. Sometimes, and think about it as you're going through your day the next couple of days, do you tend to eat by the clock? Do you eat because it's just time to? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we eat because of a social situation. We might eat in an event because you're expected to. There is a link between eating and stress and depression. We eat more or less and different types of food depending on our moods. Other eating cues could include the holidays or watching TVs and movies. I don't know about you, but when I go see a movie, I want popcorn. Like, I may not have wanted popcorn for a while, but when I'm in a movie theater, I want to eat popcorn. And if we're just being honest, I like to eat Junior Mints with my popcorn. It's a whole thing. A lot of factors go into what our taste preferences include. Our body chemistry and environmental factors come together to influence not only when we feel hungry, but what we feel hungry for. Here's an example. If you're squeamish, you may want to look away. Here's an example. This is a food stall in Bangkok, Thailand, where you can buy deep fried insects. This is considered a delicacy in a lot of parts of the world. So we're going to cover a couple of other concepts with this unit, including eating disorders. One of the eating disorders that you are probably familiar with is anorexia nervosa. This is characterized by a normal weight person, usually an adolescent woman, losing dramatic amounts of weight continuously and yet still feeling like they're overweight. Other eating disorders include bulimia nervosa. This is a disorder characterized by episodes of overeating, and this is usually high-calorie foods, which is followed by vomiting, laxative use, fasting, or excessive exercise. You're basically doing whatever it takes to get rid of the calories that you've just consumed. And then there is binge eating. More recently, we know of it as a disorder from the DSM, binge eating disorder. This is recurrent binge eating without any type of purging, as in bulimia. Western culture tends to overemphasize a thin body image more than other cultures do. Cultures who put more emphasis on appearance have higher rates of eating disorders. We know this is true. We can see that statistically. We will be reading an article in class about this very topic. Something I want you to think about before you read the article is if there is an article just about body image and its link to eating disorders, what does that existence even say about women and men? And what about the women's bodies make for unreachable standards? So think about the standards that are in our culture and what makes those unreachable. Okay, so just to sum up the motivation of hunger, there are several factors that kind of come in together to really lead us to our eating behavior. There's a biological factor, and we're talking about the mid-hypothalamic center in the brain that monitors appetite, the lateral and the ventromedial hypothalamus. We have appetite hormones, in particular glucose. There are some others that we'll be discussing in class. Stomach pangs that send messages to the brain. A set point or a setting point that determines our weight, that we're going to continue to adjust our behaviors according to the theory to maintain that set point. We tend to have a universal attraction to sweet and salty foods, and there's an adaptive wariness towards new foods. So if we get into a rut, we tend to kind of stay in that rut and not venture out and try new, healthier foods. There's a psychological factor. The sight and smell of a variety of tasty foods are going to motivate us to want to eat. Sometimes our mind plays tricks on us about how long it's been since the last time we ate, whether it's been a long time or not very long at all. And then our mood definitely affects us as we are making decisions about eating. And then lastly, there's a social cultural factor. Culturally, we learn to have preferences in our tastes, and there's a learned restraint or not in cultures that idealize thinness. All of these come together and lead us to our eating behavior. And that's it for the motivation of hunger. In our next video, we will continue with specific motivations. I can't wait to see you then. Bye for now.